in every school in the country that many people would want to take. So this revision and vision process that we've been doing has been going on since 2008, and this year College Board has announced that this will be an official AP exam in 2016, 2017. So it really is the work of a community of stakeholders, not just a few people that were there. There were 10 people on a commission, 30 teachers, college professors, professional educators, all of whom got together to design and make sure this course would succeed in high schools. The course was piloted for 3 years, first by colleges and universities. Part of the deal with an advanced placement course is that it has to be a course for which credit and or placement will be given for a college equivalent. And in the early years of this process, there was an attestation phase where we contacted hundreds of colleges and universities to see would they give credit and or placement for this computer science principles course. And I think most people thought the answer would be no, and surprisingly the answer was yes, which is why we're on this precipice of launching this magnificent effort. Then there was a second year of piloting between high schools and colleges that were partnered together. Then in the third year, a very small pilot of 6, the first pilot that worked on the performance tasks that Fran will tell you about. In this past year, we had 50 pilot schools, 12 colleges, about 38 high schools, using the performance tasks and the new system revisions that we'll talk about today.
CS Principles is, it will be an AP course come 2016-17. So there is a development committee in place as the development committees exist in all other AP subjects. This development committee was responsible for this past year. We've been in place for a year, and we are responsible for finalizing the curriculum framework, which I'll speak about in a little while. And we also are responsible for developing the test items that the students will be administered in 2017 for the first time. So our development committee works just like any other AP course development committee. The curriculum framework. I'm going to talk a little bit about the curriculum framework and what it covers. I know Rich already informed you that there are 7 big ideas: creativity, abstraction, data, algorithms, programming, impact, and the internet. You know, we've been living with these big ideas for a long time, so it's just part of our inner being now. These big ideas, along with the 6 computational thinking practices, creating, let me see if I can remember that, creating, connecting, abstracting, analyzing, communicating, and collaborating. These all together form the curriculum framework for our course. I'm laughing because Rich is back there cueing me on the ones that I'm forgetting. We don't want you to believe that these are separate units that need to be taught in CSP. They are themes throughout the course. You can't take a unit and teach creativity, or you can't take a unit and teach abstraction. These are themes that go throughout the course. The way the curriculum framework is set up, if you link to that, and you can find that at csprinciples.org. If you look at the framework, it's set up in a table form. And in that table form, there are 3 major columns. The first column is enduring understandings. Enduring understandings are basically takeaways, what we want the students to walk away from the course, knowing and understanding and carrying through their lives. After the enduring understandings, each enduring understanding has 1 or more learning objectives. And the learning objectives are what the students should know as a result of studying the curriculum in the course. Each learning objective has 1 or more essential, help me out here. Essential knowledge. Essential knowledge statements. The essential knowledge statements are statements that that define for the teachers, basically, what the learning objectives are expecting. So we take each learning objective and we try to make it clear to the teachers. That learning objective is a broad way of looking at a topic. We take each learning objective and we are very specific about what in that learning objective we want the teachers to focus on when they're teaching the course. Also part of that table, or the curriculum framework, is we just added these as the most recent revision, basically exclusion statements. So in the column with the learning objectives, we have exclusion statements. And those exclusion statements either deal with a learning objective or an essential knowledge statement. And the exclusion statements define the scope of the course. So for example, when we're talking about binary numbers and looking at the binary numbers into base 10 or vice versa, the conversions, in the exclusion statement you might see the students are not expected to know 2's complement. So there are exclusion statements that define the scope of the course for anything that we felt was unclear for the teachers. And this input, the exclusion statements, really were designed from what the pilot teachers have told us, from the input we got from the pilot teachers. If they weren't clear about some area or some essential knowledge statement, then we looked at that essential knowledge statement. We tried to better define it and give a limited scope of what the teachers would have to include in their class. We already talked about the timeline. The first exam is set to be administered in 2017, and the curriculum and the courses, these were still in the pilot stage. So we hope that we're in that the curriculum framework is finalized now, and we hope that the performance tests have gone over. We've gone over them and we've revised them, and they will be in a pilot stage for the next school year. So the curriculum framework right now is what other AP teachers are looking at as the Acorn book. Right now, the Acorn book guides most AP courses. What we're looking at now to guide the teachers that are implementing the course is the curriculum framework. That's part of what we have for the teachers. There will be other resources available for the teachers, but right now the curriculum framework is the Acorn book. We do have, as part of the course, the course is going into effect 2016 and 17. The first exam is being administered in 2017. This exam is very unlike any other AP exam. This exam is 2 parts. There are objectively scored questions, and there are performance tasks. There are 2 performance tasks. The 2 performance tasks, the first is Explore. And what Explore is, it's looking at the students would choose a computing innovation, something that's interesting to them, and they would explore this computing innovation. And they would have to then answer questions. There are prompts given in the Explore performance task. They would have to answer questions about this computing innovation, and they would have to create an artifact that deals with either the benefits or the harmful effects, the possible harmful effects of the computing innovation that they chose to investigate and explore. So there would be 2 parts to this that they would be submitting, and one would be the written assignment and one would be the artifact that they create. Some people in other sessions ask, well, what do you mean by artifacts? And some of the types of artifacts that we received from the pilot students were videos, some were PowerPoint presentations. So an artifact could be a program, or a program that creates a picture, and the picture is the artifact. I'm stealing that from Dan Garcia's explanation yesterday. So there's a variety of different artifacts the student could submit. The second performance task is Create, and Create really is about programming. So the Create performance task requires the students to do part of this collaboratively. with a partner, with another person. In the performance task, we felt it necessary to better explain what we meant by collaboratively. Some of the students who submitted assignments, when we asked about collaboration, they would say, well, I did the program because I can program, and my partner did the write-up because I don't like to write. So we had to be careful what we meant by collaborative was that they both give input in writing the program. Deepa, do we have a question?
Yes. Alicia Testa says, I have a new CS course starting September 3rd at my high school. Wondering if I can organize myself with resources to be ready. I taught CS in a small private college in the 1990s, but it has been a while.
So the question is, can I be ready? And there's a lot of different ways to implement this course and the PTs and integrate the PTs in the course. One of the ways that teachers can start is just look at the curriculum framework and take pieces of the curriculum framework and add the pieces of the curriculum framework to your current course. Many schools offer an intro to computer science course, and part of that could be dealing with privacy. So you look at the curriculum framework and you look at what do we have to know about privacy here? What do we have to know about programming? Or what do we have to know about impact? You try to integrate one piece at a time.
We'll have some resources later in this talk where we can point to her so that she can find more information about what she might do in her own class.
So as far as the performance tasks, you can actually start in your current course and do practice performance tasks. We don't expect students to be able to do a performance task like right away at the beginning of the course. These are assessments that should happen towards the ends of the course. The the programming and the collaboration on the programming, we actually suggested either something like pair programming would be a collaboration. Or if two people work together and they work on different parts of the program, then they share feedback with each other. It's important that the students, when they're collaborating, are sharing feedback. That's the most important part of collaboration. So for the create, they would have to create a program collaboratively and submit that and submit a video of the running program. And then a write-up explaining what they've done in the program, answering prompts that are given to them. Also in the create performance task, they will submit an individual program and an individual write-up answering questions on their individual program, as well as answering questions about the collaboration that took place with the partner program. So the two performance tasks will be submitted towards the end of the course, similar to what Studio Art does. So they are through course assessments. And the other part of the exam is the objectively scored questions. There's no more multiple choice questions with paper pencil. These are computer-based questions. So the students will be given these computer-based questions, and they will come in a variety of types that drag and drop. So the students will, rather than just single multiple choice, there will be single multiple choice questions. Students may see drag and drop questions or order these items in ascending or descending order, or click on the part of the graph that satisfies a certain criteria. So there are different types of questions. It will not be a paper pencil test. And all of these items are being, the pilots will be piloting these types of questions and the interface over the next semester or two before the exam launches.
Just on the chance that there's some people listening that don't come from the world of advanced placement, all the objectively scored questions on an AP exam kind of undergo this rigorous psychometric testing and evaluation so that there's an assurance that from year to year that the student population scores can be determined on a kind of statistically reliable basis. So this is an AP exam like all others, and those questions will undergo the same testing and evaluation.
And both assessments will be based on the learning objectives and the essential knowledge statements. So you really, the teacher teaching the course will really have to pay close attention to the learning objectives and those essential knowledge statements. That's what the test items will be based on.
And when the Acorn book that Fran mentioned earlier comes out, there will be sample questions in there for teachers a little bit before the 2016 school year, so that the teachers that are getting ready to teach the course for the first time have a solid understanding of what those questions will look like.
Eva, you have another question?
Yes. Bruce Schwartz asks, will a specific programming language be required? I am taking a CSP for HS course, and we are using Snap for the programming unit.
We're going to talk about some of that in a minute, and the answer is no, there's a specific programming language is not required, but we'll mention a few things that are going to be offered as we go to the next slides. There's a question in the room also.
In terms of the create performance task, a student who is, for example, creating a program to run a robot is an autonomous program, would that be an acceptable submission, or would it have to be computer-based application?
They won't have to submit the robot. The question was what was the question? When the student is writing a program to direct a robot, is that an acceptable submission? And what we're trying to do is look at many ways. They can't, obviously my answer was they can't submit the robot, but look at different languages, and their submission will have to be the code in PDF form, right? So they'd have to submit the code in PDF form. They'd have to submit a video of the working program, and then the written part of it will ask specific questions about the program that they wrote. Now, if they can satisfy everything that's in the PT with whatever you're doing, then it would be acceptable.
I think that would probably be workable, but that kind of question comes up often in our when we make presentations, so I think there'll be an official answer, but you can do both the source code and the video of the robot working, so that seems feasible. There's another question from Virtual Land.
There is a concern that the questions that are being asked in the audience are not audible.
We will repeat the question, so we'll make sure from now on that we repeat the question.
If you can take care of that, please.
There's a question from the audience.
What kind of confidence level the teacher that I have that I would have the resources available to narrow down the topics to prepare the students the programming instruction, just the extraordinary goals and figure out what resources I would have.
I'll repeat what I think the question is, and you tell me if I got it right. The question is, if you're looking at this, for example, for perhaps the first time, you look at the curriculum framework, and there's a lot of stuff there. How do you know how to narrow it, filter it, and focus it so that what you're doing in your high school class is going to get your students prepared to succeed on the AP exam? Because you might be able to interpret these curriculum framework enduring understandings in many different ways. So what's the right level of kind of depth and complexity that you have to use to cover it? Is that right? So my easy answer is going to be, in a minute, we're going to point you at existing implementations of this that you can look at for some guidelines for what's going on. And I hope that by looking at those existing implementations, you'll get a reasonable understanding of what it will be like.
And some guidance is given in the curriculum framework with the exclusion statements and the essential knowledge statements.
And I think that later this afternoon, when you hear in another session about what resources are available for teachers, there might be some more depth given in those. But I'll say something in a minute when I get to this slide. There was another question in the back.
I just want
So I think the question is, it's about the Create PT, and there are two programs, the requirements for the Create PT, to clarify those. There are there's many parts, many submissions for the Create PT, right? So each student will work with another student to develop a collaborative program and a collaborative write-up. And then those 2 students will go off on their own and each write an individual program and an individual write-up. Right, so the way the PT has been revised is in the former version of the PT they both had to be with the same focus. And that is not true anymore. They could just write a program of their choice.
But it's also permissible for the individual program to be a continuation and an elaboration and an add-on to the collaborative program. So that's explicitly allowed in the new version of the performance task, so that the 2 programs might be related, but they don't have to be. The question was, for the experience of the student, they work first collaboratively and then they work individually, and that is correct. That's the performance task requires that. That's how it works, first collaborative and then individually. But I think the general assumption is this will not be the first time that the students have sat down to program, because this is the part of their course that will be turned in for a grade to be assigned to them. So they will have had several experiences working both collaboratively and individually before they sit down to do the performance task.
Eva, you have a question?
Elizabeth Dillard says that I have freshmen enrolled in the class that are doing a good job on the material. Will freshmen be able to get AP credit?
Anybody that takes the AP exam, once it becomes an AP course, might be able to get credit and or placement depending on where they go to college. I think there's kind of 2 levels to that question. One, currently this course is not an AP course. There's not a course audit yet. That will not be in place until before the exam is ready to launch in 2016. At that point, it can be an AP course, and there are no guidelines from the College Board in terms of who's allowed to take an AP course. There are recommendations that in general, first-year students in high school are not generally prepared for an AP experience. You can find that in College Board materials, but obviously every student is different. So I think the general idea is that this course is an advanced placement course. It's not designed to be an easy advanced placement course. It's designed to be an advanced placement course. So that answer in terms of who can get credit for it will depend on the school, but there's nothing in the way of a freshman in high school succeeding in an AP course. It just might be harder in general because it turns out that 14-year-olds work differently than 18-year-olds. Is there another question, Deepa? I will move quickly through this, so in case more questions emerge. One of the things that we wanted to talk about are the different communities in place, both face-to-face communities and online communities. So the first place that we hope that many teachers will turn to for resources is their local CSTA chapter. And if there is no local CSTA chapter, I happen to be standing next to the person who can help you create one. And if you send her a note, I'm sure among the many things she has to do, she will be happy to help you with that. I believe that I'm also now a member of perhaps the newest CSTA local chapter in Eastern North Carolina, so I'm happy that that can be something that you can all take advantage of. And that local community is something that's very important. There will be a new version of cs10kcommunity.org that's up. That's a place where many different communities live under a single umbrella, and a new version of that website will be rolling out in the coming academic year, and I hope that people will look to there for an online community of people with like interests. We will keep csprinciples.org up to date with pointers to both the curriculum framework and the performance tasks when that's possible, and soon that some of the places on csprinciples.org will be pointing at resources from the College Board site rather than be housing them on csprinciples.org. But if you want a one-stop shopping place for where you can find this information, we'll make sure that csprinciples.org is up to date. And for those of you that are paying really close attention, there is a new version of that website at apcsprinciples.org that will be rolling out soon to csprinciples.org in case you want to have something there. There are several ongoing pilots. We mentioned that there's the College Board pilot that Fran and I are part of. Fran is a pilot teacher, and I'm the PI on the College Board NSF grant that oversees this. We had weekly hangouts with all our pilot teachers last year that garnered kind of one way of building a community within our teachers. That was very important for us. That was not a local thing because we were spread out throughout the country. There are several regional and national initiatives that you can use if you want to not develop your own course yourself. Many high school teachers that are developing an AP course, whether it was APCS-A or now APCS Principles, develop their own course. Others take an existing course, a whole sequence of lessons and tests, and adapt that to their own purpose. I'm going to list several of the initiatives, and you can find these on csprinciples.org. In Delaware, there's a full-blown statewide initiative to make CS Principles happen in the state of Delaware. Maryland is developing their own computer science principles curriculum that they, by a series of master teachers that meet regularly to adopt and make that go forward. In Southern California, at the University of California, San Diego, they are now partnered with a group in Ohio where they're developing a computer science principles curriculum that they have professional development for and are pushing out. In Connecticut and Massachusetts, there's a group that I will say some more about in a minute that also has something. At the University of Texas, there's another initiative for teachers in Texas to use a curriculum. And in the middle of California, Berkeley, in collaboration with a partner in North Carolina, there's another course that you can find information about. All these courses have information on csprinciples.org, pointers to their websites. Some of them have full-blown curricula. Some of them have smaller things. I'll say some more in a minute about them, but apparently we have a question from the audience.
Tammy Niehaus would like to know, when do you expect initial rubrics to be available for the performance tasks?
Right now, they're in draft form, and as soon as the development committee goes through the rubrics, and I believe that will happen sometime in September, October, and as soon as they're finalized, we will post them. I can't be more specific than that.
Because one of the earlier questions was about programming languages, I just want to mention that of all these initiatives that I've just discussed briefly, and for which there will be pointers that you can find from csprinciples.org, they use many different programming languages. There's not one language that's used by most pilot courses. So depending on what your own interests are, some use App Inventor, which is a way of making drag and drop programming something that runs on a cell phone or a tablet. Others use text-based language. Others use Snap and Scratch, which have also already been mentioned. There are two other pilot projects that aren't sponsored by the National Science Foundation that if you're teaching in a school, for example, that's a Project Lead the Way school. Project Lead the Way probably has more teachers teaching computer science principles like course this coming year than any other single project. I think it's probably pretty close. That's not a program that anybody can adopt. That means your school and district has to be a Project Lead the Way school. And then in 2015, code.org will have a computer science principles curriculum that will be online that you can adopt. Their partnership for their professional development will only be with their collaborating districts in general, but the curriculum will be available for anybody to use. Some of these are programming-centric, some of them are less programming-centric, and pointers to those will be available so that if you're trying to imagine your own thing, and that's the answer to the question here for the gentleman that wanted to know, in how much depth do we need to cover these learning objectives? By looking at these existing curricula, you might be able to get a good idea of what's being going on in these pilot schools. Pilot means something different. For us right here, Fran and I, the pilots are the College Board pilots. They're 50. But there are over 200 teachers that we know about that are teaching a computer science principles course, and we're trying to make sure that they're part of at least a virtual community as well, by having resources like this project available to them. I want to mention that thanks to the generosity of Google, there are 2 MOOCs that are doing computer science principles things. Jeff Gray, who's in the room, is almost done with one that he's been doing for a couple of weeks. And Ralph Morelli, who works on the mobile computer science principles project, has just started his MOOC. And those are also materials that are available online that you'll be able to take, not in real time necessarily, but roll back and see those videos and resources that are available there. That's our last slide, I believe. One other thing that I would like to make clear anyway. A question comes up often, hey, I'm teaching an AP course, I need a textbook. Because many of the AP courses require a textbook as part of the audit process. There are many available resources online that are free, and since one of the principles of computer science principles is that these courses are widely available with very few kind of expenses on the part of the schools adopting them, I hope we'll continue to see those free resources available so that textbooks might come out. I imagine people, but it turns out the textbook companies are big on this. But I hope that they'll continue to be free and open resources as well. And I know that there are people working on projects to ensure that happens, and I'm sure you'll be hearing about those in the next year.
And then another question that's often asked is, do we see CS principles as a feeder course to APCSA? And the answer is not necessarily. The courses, some teachers have been successful, and we've heard this from pilot teachers and other teachers teaching CSP, that yes, indeed, by the students taking computer science principles, it gets them excited and interested in computer science. And those students will then go on to take APCSA. On the other end, some people taking APCSA take CS principles after they finish APCSA, and then there are the students that take them both at the same time. So it's not meant to be a feeder course, though some teachers see that as a successful way to increase their APCSA enrollment.
Related to what Fran's talking about with the sequencing of those two AP courses, and related to the question that came up, are my ninth graders ready to go? Not every student in high school is ready for an AP experience. So in the same flavor that computer science principles is an AP course, there might be some people that are listening that don't know that there's exploring computer science, which is another option that has that's very similar in flavor, that's built on a research-based approach to make sure that the course is appealing to many students. One of the things that Fran talked about earlier with the performance tasks is you have to do an innovation and a program. But what those innovations and programs are about are something completely left to the students. So they're very student-centric and student-led, which is one of the things that we've found out helps make a course appealing to a wide variety of students. So rather than all working on, for example, Grid World, even if you can be doing Grid World in a hugely interesting and individualized way, in the case of computer science principles, your program that you write is whatever you want your program to be, which is kind of a huge opportunity for many teachers. And exploring computer science has that same flavor. It's not an AP course. It will have an assessment soon at the end of that course. So that's an opportunity for students that maybe aren't ready for an AP course to participate in the same movement that we're part of here. We have a question from the audience.
Owen, there are participants from middle schools who are looking at this course and at this event as for guidance in terms of what they could possibly do to get their kids ready for a high school experience. Can you and Fran speak from your experience about what you would recommend?
The question was, we've been talking about opportunities for high school students, and many people are often interested in what opportunities there are for middle school students, so that students in middle school might continue to get excited about what's going on in the world of computer science, so that they can be launched into a high school experience. And I know of several middle school programs, and I happen to be standing next to a person who's about to develop a new middle school project. I'll let Fran talk about that in a minute. I know that you're going to be hearing later from Emmanuel Schanzer, who has a project that works in middle school projects to do Bootstrap, and that's something you can find online. I'm pretty sure that if you Google Bootstrap and Schanzer, you'll find it. He's going to be speaking later as part of this conference. I imagine he might spoke about it himself. His project is also part of what is informing Code.org's middle school project. So if you go to Code.org, they will have resources available for incorporating computing into existing middle school courses, both in science using Project GUTS, which is done by Irene Lee, and Bootstrap, which is done by Emmanuel. So those courses have been rolled into something that will be generally available to the Code.org districts, but those resources are available online for anybody to use. And I think that you'll be able to continue to see more things going for both after-school projects and in-school projects, and the kind of way that after-school and in-school work is different from a standpoint of making everybody have access to them, because not every kid can be an after-school kid. So those opportunities are things that we will continue to see. It's also important to understand that all these courses that I've talked about are aligned in some way with the CSTA K-12 standards. So looking at those for helping to ensure that your course is kind of well-grounded is a good place to go.
There are many CSTA chapters working with their state's department, the State Department of Education, to have CS count in some way. And what Owen referred to is one of New Jersey is we've been very successful recently in working with the state. And we have some great initiatives, but Rutgers, we applied for a very small grant, 60 special awards, and we were granted that award. And what we'll be doing is just kind of gathering information and creating materials for middle school computer club activities so that we can market this as like a computer club in a box type of thing. And present it to our State Department of Education so that they can then distribute it or make it available to middle schools, any middle school in New Jersey or in other places. But I think most of the CSTA chapters have an interest in working with middle school and take it further down, elementary school teachers, and looking at the ways that CS Unplugged activities can be integrated into the curriculum or as after-school activities.
Another place that people that are both in this room and out there can look is if you have a local university. We've just started a project. We have many students now that want to be kind of part of social entrepreneurship. So they're rolling out outreach projects to go to middle schools and high schools and teach Scratch programming or bring Lego robots and teach that programming. So there are opportunities there that if you don't have a CSTA chapter, but you do have a university, you might contact someone in the computer science department there to see, hey, do you have students that are interested in building a project, even if they don't have one? That's a great way of kind of forming some collaborative opportunities between the local school districts and the universities that often don't even know that they might have students there if you don't ask the right person. So there are some opportunities there as well.
And there are a lot of computer science camps for middle schools. Barb Erickson she does many of these, developing these computer science camps for younger children.
Is there a question in the back, or is Barb just acknowledging that she does that?
That's true, right, Barb? You do that. Yes, she does.
One final maybe thing, if there are no other questions, that Fran mentioned elementary schools, and I think you're going to see several projects unrolling soon to make sure that there are resources available for elementary school teachers to put materials in their class as well. I know that at least code.org will be doing that soon, and I think you'll find some other ones of those. Again, looking to the CSTA standards to see how things work in the K-12 environment.
And if you're presently in a high school, there is the CS Ed Week in December. The Hour of Code was very, very successful this past year. So this is an opportunity for everybody to visit their elementary schools and their middle schools and introduce computer science to these younger children so that they get a feel for it, so that they get a taste of the activities and the excitement and the creativity that can be involved with computer science. So we encourage you to do that.
We have one more question from people.
More a comment than a question. Elizabeth Dillard, who has been very active in asking questions, also acknowledges FIRST Robotics being an excellent resource to introduce computer science.
There are many robotic opportunities, both competitive and non-competitive, that are accessible to both elementary school, middle school, and certainly high school students. Some of those, if you have a local person that does FIRST Robotics or Lego, they're great things to do. Science Olympiad is about to come out with a computer science part of it. So that's another opportunity for middle school students to be involved with. That's a new thing that's coming this year, at least in North Carolina, so I assume it's coming to other parts as well. I don't know. But if you have questions, you can certainly pop them to someone here who will forward them to the right person. I think we're done. So we'll move to the next